What happens when a veteran goaltender, a guy who's been your backbone, your starter, your go-to guy between the pipes, suddenly becomes expendable overnight? What does it say about an organization when they send their number one down to the minors, only to reverse course 48 hours later with an explanation so thin you could see through it like a freshly cleaned sheet of ice? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bewildering, fascinating, and absolutely riveting goaltending drama unfolding in Montreal right now. The Canadiens just pulled off a move that has everyone from analysts to diehard fans scratching their heads, and the implications could reshape this franchise's entire trajectory. Samuel Montembeault, remember that name, was supposed to be getting his game back in the AHL with the Laval Rocket. Instead, he's back in Montreal, but not in the way anyone expected. And the reason? Well, that's where this story gets absolutely wild. If you're a hockey fan who loves the strategic chess match of roster management, the psychological warfare of lineup decisions, and the raw human drama of competition, buckle up, because what's happening in Montreal right now is a masterclass in how quickly the game can change and how two young guns can completely upend the established order in less time than it takes to play a single period. Let's rewind the tape. Martin St. Louis, the head coach of the Montreal Canadiens, made what seemed like a straightforward decision. Send Samuel Montembeault down to Laval to work on his game, get some reps, find his rhythm. It's a move we've seen countless times across professional sports. When a player's struggling, you send them down to rebuild confidence and iron out the technical wrinkles. Nothing controversial, nothing earth-shattering. Montembeault suited up for the Rocket, did his thing, and everyone assumed he'd complete his conditioning stint before rejoining the big club. Standard operating procedure, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. Because here's where the script flips. St. Louis announced that Montembeault would be joining his teammates for the game against the Pittsburgh Penguins on Sunday. But, and this is the crucial detail, even after his AHL assignment officially ended, Montembeault didn't travel with the team. Instead, he stayed in Montreal, working with goalie coach Marco Marciano at the practice facility. The official explanation from the Canadiens? They wanted to avoid unnecessary travel since Montembeault would be with the team when work resumed after the holiday break anyway. Sounds reasonable on the surface, doesn't it? Except when you peel back the layers, when you examine the timeline, when you look at what actually happened on the ice during those crucial games, the real story emerges, and it's absolutely explosive. Here's what the Canadiens didn't say in their carefully worded statement, but what everyone who's been paying attention already knows. Jacob Dobes and Jacob Fowler just put on a goaltending clinic that made keeping Montembeault around completely unnecessary. Think about this for a second. While Montembeault was down in Laval trying to rediscover his game, these two young netminders combined to allow exactly one goal across 2 games. 1 goal, 2 games. That's not just good goaltending. That's the kind of performance that forces coaching staffs to tear up their carefully laid plans and start from scratch. Analyst Maxime Truman absolutely nailed it when he broke down what really happened here. The Canadiens had already committed to giving Dobes the start in 1 game and Fowler the start in another before the holiday break. They'd made that decision before Montembeault even got back on the team bus from Laval on Saturday night. And why wouldn't they? Fowler had just posted a shutout. Dobes had just delivered 2 games with a single goal against. These weren't just competent performances, these were statement games, as Truman wrote, and I'm paraphrasing here because the analysis is so spot on it deserves highlighting. The coaching staff decided to bring Montembeault back to Montreal on the Rockets bus Saturday night. The official reason? Avoid unnecessary travel. The real reason? They'd already planned to give yesterday's start to Dobes and tomorrow's to Fowler. Fowler had just secured a shutout and Dobes had just played 2 games, allowing only 1 goal. Montembeault's presence with the Montreal team became unnecessary. Let that sink in. Unnecessary. That's the word that should send chills down every veteran player's spine in professional sports. One day you're the starter, the next day you're unnecessary because 2 kids just proved they can do your job better than you can. Now let's talk about what this means from a human perspective, because this isn't just about statistics and save percentages. This is about a 29-year-old goaltender who's watching his job potentially slip away in real time. Samuel Montembeault isn't some journeyman who's bounced around the league. He's been a stabilizing presence for Montreal. He's earned his stripes. He's put in the work. And now he's sitting in Montreal, training with the goalie coach, knowing full well that the only reason he's not in Pittsburgh with his teammates is because two younger players just made him expendable. Imagine the mental gymnastics happening in his head right now. Am I still the guy? Do they still believe in me? What happens when we come back from the break? These aren't abstract questions. These are career-defining moments of doubt that can either fuel a comeback or accelerate a decline. St. Louis confirmed that Montembeault will travel with the team after the holiday break. But here's the million-dollar question. In what capacity? As the starter? As the backup? As the third-string emergency option? Because based on current performance, Dobes and Fowler haven't just earned the right to stay in Montreal's crease, they've earned the right to own it. Put yourself in Martin St. Louis's skates for a moment. You've got a veteran goaltender who's been your guy, who's given you everything he's got, who deserves respect and consideration. But you also have two young phenoms who are playing out of their minds, who represent the future of your franchise, who are giving you every reason to ride the hot hand. This is where coaching becomes less about X's and O's and more about psychology, politics, and pure gut instinct. Do you stick with Montembeault out of loyalty, hoping he rediscovers his form? Or do you commit to the kids, knowing that confidence is fragile and momentum is everything? The Canadiens are in a rebuild. Everyone knows it. The goal isn't to squeeze out a few extra wins this season, it's to build a foundation for sustained success. And if Dobes and Fowler are showing you right now that they can be elite NHL goaltenders, doesn't that change everything? Doesn't that accelerate your timeline? Doesn't that make every game they play together more valuable than any game Montembeault might give you? St. Louis is facing decisions that will define not just this season, but potentially the next 5 years of Montreal Canadiens hockey. If he commits to the young goalies and they flourish, he's a genius who recognized talent and had the courage to trust it. If he commits to them and they falter, he's the guy who rushed the prospects and destroyed their development. If he goes back to Montembeault and the veteran struggles, he's the coach who couldn't adapt. If he goes back to Montembeault and the veteran thrives, he's the steady hand who never panicked. There's no easy answer here, and that's what makes it so compelling. Here's where this story takes another fascinating turn. If the Canadiens are genuinely committed to Dobes and Fowler moving forward, what does that mean for Samuel Montembeault's future in Montreal? We're approaching the trade deadline. Teams around the league are desperate for goaltending. A 29-year-old netminder with NHL experience suddenly becomes a very attractive asset if Montreal decides they don't need him anymore. The question isn't whether Montembeault has value, it's whether the Canadiens are willing to admit they've moved on. Think about the teams that could use a goalie right now. Think about the contenders who need depth, the rebuilding teams who need a bridge to their own prospects, the organizations that would love to have a capable veteran who can eat innings and keep them competitive. Montembeault could fetch a decent return if Montreal plays their cards right. But here's the catch. The moment you make Montembeault available, you're admitting that Dobes and Fowler are the future. You're burning the bridge. You're making a statement that there's no going back. And if those two young goalies hit a rough patch after you've traded away your safety net, you're in serious trouble. It's a high-stakes gamble, and Kent Hughes, Montreal's general manager, is going to have to make a call soon. Does he shop Montembeault while his value is still decent? Does he keep him as insurance? Does he wait to see how the next few weeks unfold before making any moves? Let's look at history for a second, because this isn't the first time a team has faced this exact dilemma. Remember when Carey Price emerged in Montreal and displaced Cristobal Huet? Remember when Tuukka Rask took over from Tim Thomas in Boston? Remember when Jordan Binnington came out of nowhere to steal the starting job, and then a Stanley Cup in St. Louis? Young goaltenders who seize their opportunity can change franchises overnight. They bring energy, fearlessness, and a hunger that veterans sometimes lose. They make saves they have no business making because they don't know they're supposed to be impossible. They galvanize locker rooms because everyone loves a good underdog story. But here's the flip side. For every Binnington, there's a dozen young goalies who flamed out after a hot streak. For every Price, there's a prospect who couldn't handle the pressure of being the guy. Goaltending is the most mentally demanding position in sports, and the graveyard of can't-miss prospects is littered with players who had all the talent but couldn't sustain it. So, what are Dobes and Fowler? Are they the real deal, or are they riding a hot streak that'll come crashing down the moment adversity hits? St. Louis and Hughes are betting the next several years of their franchise on getting that answer right. Here's the bottom line, folks. What's happening in Montreal right now is bigger than one goaltender getting sent down and brought back. This is a franchise at an absolute crossroads, trying to figure out who they are and who they're going to be. Samuel Montembeault's situation is a microcosm of the larger question facing the Canadiens. Do you cling to the familiar, or do you embrace the uncertain future? Do you play it safe, or do you bet on talent and potential? Do you manage egos and politics, or do you ruthlessly pursue performance? The next few weeks will tell us everything we need to know. When the team returns from the holiday break, watch who gets the net. Watch how St. Louis manages the rotation. Watch whether Montembeault looks like a man fighting for his job or a man who's already accepted his fate. Watch whether Dobes and Fowler can maintain this absurd level of play or whether regression creeps in. And most importantly, watch whether Kent Hughes makes a move. Because if Montembeault gets traded before the deadline, we'll know exactly where Montreal stands. They'll have chosen youth over experience, potential over proven commodity, and the future over the present. This is the kind of drama that makes hockey beautiful. It's not just about goals and saves. It's about human beings competing at the highest level, about organizations making franchise-altering decisions, about the thin line between success and failure. If this story has you as fired up as it has me, if you're as fascinated by the strategic chess match happening in Montreal as I am, do me a favor, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me what you'd do if you were Martin St. Louis. Would you ride the hot hand with Dobes and Fowler, or would you give Montembeault another chance to prove he's still the guy? Because I genuinely want to know how you'd handle this impossible situation. The Montreal Canadiens just proved that in hockey, nothing is guaranteed, plans change in an instant, and sometimes the best move is the one you never saw coming. Welcome to the beautiful chaos of the NHL, where even a simple roster decision can become the story of the season.